Spear Mirage is currently a menace in PvP. It is probably the best build as a roamer that you can currently play, not even in ranked play only, but also in ATs. It's extremely strong right now. And it actually is also able to win duels just because it is so strong. So today we're gonna take a look at this build, and without much further ado, let's jump right in. So for gear, you want to run Berserker, of course, Amulet with Stormsinger Relic. You have a lot of jumps actually with the Stormsinger Relic. This gives you a lot of damage increase. Then you have Rune of Infiltration, just for even more power and of course more precision to have more crit chance. Getting more crits means more damage, just best option here. Then you use Spear, and in the other weapon set you use Sword, Shield. On both sigil slots for both weapons you use Cleansing and Energy, just for the insane defense capabilities of those two sigils. And Mirage takes a lot of advantage, of course, of the endurance that you get from Energy, so even better there. So that's it for gear, really straightforward. This is the best option and best setup here. Let's go to traits. So for traits, you go with Domination, Dueling, and Mirage. So for Domination, you get a lot of vulnerability with CCs, and you get even more damage with vulnerability. You get Shatter skills, inflict vulnerability, you have a lot of damage, and because every single clone that you shatter will do this, you have a nice burst with this. Then your Shatter skills will also remove a boon on hit. Every single clone does that, so you have a lot of boon corrupt or boon removal, really good. And then of course Power Block, whenever you CC a target and interrupt the skill with it, this skill recharge will be 15 seconds, which is really annoying for them. You will also do some damage and you inflict weakness, so it's really good skill trait here. Especially because you're using Mantra of Distraction, where you have an instant cast CC from 900 or 1200 range rather. So it's really good. Then you have Dueling. Dueling gives you some vigor, very good. You get some bleeding, not important, and you get almost permanent fury. Of course, you can get corrupted and stuff, but this is really helpful because Fury, of course, increases your crit chance. It's really helpful for a power build. And when you successfully evade an attack, gain Vigor. So this trait alone gives you almost 50% uptime because you evade a lot, of course. And Vigor is really helpful because you will see that in a second. And then Shatter skill 2 inflicts blindness. This seems like a really weird trait to take, but is actually really strong in a defensive way. You now can use your F2 skill not as a damaging tool as well. Of course, you can use it for vulnerability and wounds removed, but you can use it to deny enemy attacks coming through. So if you're standing on top of them, which you probably are because you're power built in melee range often, you just blind them and the attack will not happen. However, this will also be caused by your illusions, your clones. So if they are running from a more bigger range and they come one after the other, that might inflict multiple blinds. So it's really good. Lastly, we get Deceptive Evasion. Whenever you are in combat and dodge, you create a clone. That helps a lot just for clone generation. But of course, all your skills, for example, also the healing skill, but all your shatters are improved if you have multiple clones present. So it helps a lot. Then you have Mirage. Of course, you get your altered dodge, and that means you can get access to your ambush skill. So that means, for example, on Sword, you get Mirage Thrust, which is a really strong leap. That is not also creating a clone. It deals damage, it procs the Stormsinger Relic, so it does even more damage. It is a Daze, it helps a lot, and it's a leap finisher, so it's really overloaded, this skill. Really strong, and of course use it to CC guys, but also use it to quickly move around the map. Really good. On your Spear, you get some nice ambush skill that does just some damage in front of you and applies some vulnerability. Really nice, for example, for cleaving down targets, because the vulnerability helps, of course, just to apply a lot of pressure as well. As a Mirage, you always have to be careful to not waste your dodges on random attacks, because your dodges are also increasing your damage. So if you dodge, you can get access to your ambush skills, and your ambush skills deal a lot of damage. So you should be careful when you dodge. Don't waste your dodges. Then you get Vigor, and this is really important. Shatter skills give Vigor, and Vigor gives you 10% damage increase to Condi and power damage. Of course, you're only interested in the power one here. But 10% damage increase is insane, because it's actually also on your Shatter skills, not only because of this trait, but also because it's on your Shatter skills. That means that 99% of the time you have Vigor when you actually deal damage, because your Shatter skills will be used when you want to deal damage. You get the Vigor and you have this damage buff. So that means you get a lot of more damage just from this trait, and it's a minor one. It's really good. And that's already the dodge that I described. And then using a Deception skill, which you have 2 of, so Mirage Advance and Chaunt will create a clone if you have any other clones active. So if you, for example, dodge before you use a skill in combat, those two will create a clone as well, which is really nice for your combo. For example, if you can use Chaunt when you have a clone present, you can easily get more damage out with, for example, Mind Frag. Really, really strong trait. Then the most broken trait here, you get access to your ambush skills when you use Distortion. This helps a lot. For example, if you use Distortion, you now get access to your Mirage Thrust. This is really important because you will almost 90% of the time when you use Distortion, you want to disengage to some extent or survive for longer. And what helps you more than just being invulnerable? Moving out of the damage in the first place. So that helps with the leap as well. So really important combo to use Distortion when you're on sword as well to jump around because you get access to it. But furthermore, you actually get more with this trait because every single clone that you shatter, or illusion for that matter, becomes a Mirage Mirror. So you get a Mirage Mirror lying around. When you shatter it with 3 clones, you get 3 lying around. It's really, really good. That means you get more evades in the future as well. And if you just pick them up one by one, you actually get almost 3 more seconds of dodge uptime. It's really, really good. Really, really good. And then lastly, really skillful trait again. Shatter skills grant Mirage Cloak if you have enough clones present. So when you shatter with 2 clones, you get Mirage Cloak, which is again your dodge. So you evade when you are playing aggressive. This is really, really useful. So that means you can play really aggressively, shatter, and get an evade while you are doing your burst combo. That means even if the enemy is playing aggressive and tries to damage you, you evade during your burst combo. Can help a lot in difficult situations. And of course, it's also really strong if you want to disengage. So you can use, for example, your F2 with 2 clones to get lined up on the enemy. And then, because you used it with 2 clones, you get access to your ambush skill and sword, and you can disengage. You have crazy combo potential with this build, just because, for example, you can easily create 2 clones if you already have one, just by using those 2 skills as well. And then you get access again to Mirage Cloak. So it's really, really strong. There's a lot of combo potential with this build. And that's why this build is not even just because of the damage, just because it has so many tools baked in to survive and become really evasive. So I now very quickly go over the weapon skills. So sword is some nice evade. You have some nice emob here if you switch with your clone. You have some very strong block and some nice CC. That is also blocking projectiles, really helpful. Then of course you have some CC here as well. You have the blind, you have some nice damage, and you have the invulnerability. Your weapons too on sword is really high damage. If you hit it with the outer edge, you get, for example, 2 illusions after that if you use it with this one. That also removes wounds, immobilize, it's really, really good. And you can also get a stun on the 5 skill, which is the more important one. So if you hit your 2 skill on the outer ring, you can use your 5 instantly after that if you want, for the next 10 seconds. And you will get a stun. But if you hit the stun, most typically the enemy is dead because you deal so much damage after that. So really important to know the combo would be 2, 5, and then you reset your 2 with the 5 skill always. You can use the 2 again and then the 4. So you have 4 skills very fast after one another. And the 4 here will also deal a lot of damage as well because it's twice. And you have crazy amounts of damage, and you not only stun them because you will also get the emob after that. So it's a really nice deadly combo. Your 3 skill is your defensive skill. It is an evade, removes condis and heals a bit. I would not use that typically if you are empowered because you would rather deal some damage with your 4 or 5 skill. So typically the combo would be 2, 5 and resets the 2 then, so to make the 2 again and the 4. So that's the typical combo. On sword, I would say there is no real combo, just typically use the illusionary leap to get an emob if you can, and then of course try to just deal damage. Either swap to spear to get your more damage on spear, or you can use, of course, sword at auto take and other types of time for setup as well. The sword is more your defensive weapon set and your mobility set. This spear is your aggressive weapon set. When it comes to utility and healing skills, you always go for Ether Feast. It's the best option just because it has nice condi cleanses if you have a lot of clones, also a lot of healing. Blink, most broken skill on Mesmer utility bar, 1200 break stun, range, teleport, really, really strong. Then you have Mirage Advance. This is an interesting skill. It's a shadow step with a cast time, and it does some nice days, so you can proc again power block, and there's some blind and does some damage. Really, really strong. but you can reactivate it after that to return to your starting position and leave a clone at the previous position. That means that you can not only create a clone, but you can also, and that's the important part, really easy teleport around to not only get out of sticky situations, but also just disengage, just make it a little bit hard to catch you because you have so many teleports. It's actually a really nice skill for that matter. And it's a deception, so it can create a clone if you have already one present. Mantra of Distraction, really strong. You have to charge it first, take some time, so you typically do that out of combat when you're running around between nodes. But if you have it, it's an instant cast in front of your character, not behind, only in front, where you're facing, and it will daze the target. The daze is nice to interrupt, because then you will proc the power block, which will give a lot of vulnerability, 15-second cooldown on the cast skill, and of course, it's just a lot of denial and a nice setup with the vulnerability for the next weapon skill that you use. So use that really, really wisely a lot of times. Spam it on really important skills, healing skills, and try to check if they have stability, because if they have stability, I would say just go for a shatter before or something like that to remove the stability and then interrupt. It can be really strong if you do that in a Staff Tempest, for example. You can remove the stability from their Overload, for example, and they are going for a glyph and you interrupt the glyph. Really, really strong, really valuable. And last but not least, you have John. Really nice reposition skill, small leap finisher, and removes conditions as well. So really nice to set up. For example, getting a clone with this helps, but you can also use it as a defensive tool to get out of sticky situations and teleport up or down wherever you need. Really, really strong. So you can see in the background, this build has a lot of burst potential, especially if you do the combos correctly. And typically, I would say it's really important that you stick to your target and play aggressively, because this build has more damage than almost any other build in the current meta. So that means that if you can just kill your target before it kills you, you will win, of course, as always. You lag a little bit on condition removal, so just be aware of that and don't spend your healing skill or your chaunt or your imaginary inversion all the time on useless skills. Try to use it when you really need it. I would say Blink is a very aggressive tool as well. You don't need it to use it always defensively. You can also use it to combo with your 2 skill or to get more reach for your Mental Collapse to get this done. Like I said before, the F2 blind can be really useful, but also the diversion, so the F3 skill, Daze can be really helpful for setup. So because it will also trigger from multiple times from every single clone, you can use it to get a lot of vulnerability stacks and then get your damage setup. So typically you can use, for example, the diversion and create a clone after that to get more mindfrag damage and use your mindfrag in conjunction with Mind the Gap, for example, to deal huge amounts of burst damage with some vulnerability stacks on the target. If you combo that again with the power lock of the Mantra of Distraction, you get even more vulnerability, and this build is easily capable of getting 25 stacks of might on the target and then dealing the burst combo really, really fast. So if you know what you're doing, you can actually chain a lot of evade frames or invulnerability frames for that matter, one after the other. So you have your distortion that you can use for invulnerability. You can get blinds with your F2 skill. If you use that correctly, you can actually get some kind of evade as well. And of course, if you every single shatter skill that you use with 2 clones or more present will give you evade as well. Then you get an evade on your 3 of the spear skill. You have an evade on your 2 skill of your sword. You have 2 blocks actually on your shield as well, which can be used if there now unblockable attacks are happening. You can use it as invulnerability as well. And you can of course use your normal dodge as well as another invulnerability. And another very important tip that I have in regards to that is always, if you're in combat, before weapon swapping, dodge if you have it. Because then you get value from the energy sigil. In case you have 100% endurance, you get the ability to ambush. And that means you can get a free dodge, so to say, for only 25% of your endurance because of the energy sigil. And then another thing is, especially if you are about to swap to sword, always dodge before that, really always, because if you go to sword, you can still use the ambush skill. So you dodge and swap to sword, you can get access to the sword ambush and can move around faster. And last but not least, as a very important tip, if you are running around between nodes, you can use your shatter skills, especially F1, but also maybe F2 to some extent, as a quick way to get some vigor. Yeah, it's not a long-lasting vigor that you get, but it will give you a little bit of vigor, which then increases the endurance regeneration for a little bit. and that's a little bit of a min-maxing, because that helps then to get more endurance and engage the fight with 100% endurance, and not use the endurance all the time to move around on the map quickly and engage the fight with only 5% endurance, because you used all it to jump around with your sword ambush. So there is a lot of intricacies when it comes to when to use your sword ambushes, when not, when to be careful to use your vigor for shatter skills and that kind of stuff. So this build is really high on the skill ceiling, but it is really fun even on the low levels, just because it's how broken it is. You have a lot of instant skills, deal a lot of damage, or you have a lot of denial. You are actually amazing when it comes to cleave as well, just because of the spear. So try to use all your tools that you have in your kit and make great use out of them and have fun in ranked. So I hope you enjoyed this quick guide. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks a lot for all my supporters on Patreon, YouTube and Twitch. Thanks Timo, thanks Malice, and I hope to see you all in the next video.